Ambassador's crystal body glowed with annoyance as she looked at the data screen. Her long fingers, made of living diamond, tapped against the metal desk. The sound echoed through her office high above the Galactic Confederation capital world. Terra, she said to her aide, a young ethereal named. Another primitive planet in the outer rim. Why am I looking at this? His blue skin shimmered as he pulled up more information. The survey team wants to know if we should add them to the watch list, Ambassador. They seem to be developing faster than expected. Laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Look at their specifications. Carbon-based life forms with an average of only 80 years. They fight each other constantly. They have no psychic abilities. They haven't even left their own star system yet. She waved her hand and the screen showed images of Earth. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents appeared before them. Cities with millions of creatures called humans covered parts of the land. Smoke rose from factories and vehicles moved on roads like tiny insects. They burn fossil fuels for energy, continued, reading from the report. They use chemical rockets to reach space. Their fastest ships take months to reach their own moon. These humans are at least 500 years away from developing space-fold technology. Nodded. The survey team classified them as level 2 on the development scale. Should we send them a standard first contact package in a few centuries? Perhaps, said, dismissing the images with a gesture. File them under potential future members and forget about them. They'll probably destroy themselves in a nuclear war before they become interesting. The ambassador turned her attention to more important matters. The Confederation had 12,000 member worlds, and most of them had real problems that needed solving. Rebellions in the Andromeda sector, trade disputes between the Silicon Collective and the Gas Giant Alliance, resource allocation for the member species. Earth was just one more tiny planet full of primitives who thought they were special. Meanwhile, on the planet in question, Doctor wiped sweat from her forehead as she stared at the massive fusion reactor in front of her. The facility in Nevada was hidden deep underground, funded by a secret alliance between Earth's most powerful nations. For 20 years, the best human scientists had worked on this project. Final systems check complete, announced her assistant, Dr. James Park. All readings are green. Nodded and walked to the control station. Around her, dozens of engineers and scientists watched nervously. Some had spent their entire careers working toward this moment. Others were young graduates who had joined the project because they believed in humanity's future among the stars. Ladies and, said into the microphone that connected to every major space agency on Earth. Today we test humanity's first fusion drive. If this works, we can reach Mars in 3 weeks instead of 9 months. She placed her hand on the activation switch. The reactor had taken 5 years to build and had cost more money than most countries' entire budgets. It used technology that pushed human engineering to its absolute limits. Traditional scientists said it was impossible. The math said it shouldn't work. But humans had a long history of making impossible things work through stubbornness and creative thinking. Activating fusion drive in 3, 2, 1. Press the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor began to hum with power. The test chamber filled with brilliant blue light as controlled fusion reactions created thrust that could push a ship between worlds. Computers recorded every detail as the drive ran perfectly for 30 seconds before shut it down. The room erupted in cheers. Scientists hugged each other. Engineers cried with joy. Dr. Park pumped his fist in the air and shouted, "We did it! We actually did it!" Smiled but kept her focus on the data. The drive had performed even better than their best predictions. They could build a ship with this technology within 2 years. Humanity would finally be able to explore the solar system properly. Send word to all project partners, she told her team. We're ready to begin construction of the Endeavor. What didn't know was that her fusion drive worked on principles that the galaxy's elder races had abandoned millions of years ago. They had found more elegant solutions, more efficient methods, more refined technologies. Human fusion drives were crude and wasteful compared to their quantum-fold engines. But crude and wasteful sometimes meant something else entirely. It meant robust. It meant adaptable. It meant that when something broke, humans could fix it with spare parts and determination instead of waiting for perfectly manufactured replacement components. 3 months later, the starship Endeavour launched from a secret facility on the far side of Earth's moon. It was ugly compared to the sleek ships the Confederation built. Human vessels looked like they had been assembled in a junkyard by people who cared more about function than beauty. Thick armor plates, redundant systems, and oversized engines made them appear primitive to sophisticated alien observers. Captain Lisa commanded the Endeavour on its mission to test the new fusion drive at the edge of the solar system. Her crew of 50 represented the best pilots, engineers, and scientists humanity could provide. They were all volunteers who understood they might not return home. "All stations report ready, Captain," announced Commander Hayes from the navigation station. Lisa looked out at the stars through the ship's main window. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations might be watching and judging humanity. She hoped they would see humans as worthy of respect when first contact finally happened. "Take us out, Commander," she ordered. "Let's see what our little backwater planet can really do." The Endeavour's engines fired and pushed the ship toward the outer planets at speeds no human vessel had ever achieved. Behind them, Earth grew smaller until it was just another point of light among billions. Ahead lay the unknown, where humanity would soon discover it was not alone in the universe. But first, they had to accidentally find a hidden gateway to the stars. 6 months after the Endeavour's successful test flight, the ship was exploring the outer reaches of the solar system when something impossible happened. Commander Hayes was running a routine scan of an empty region of space when his instruments detected a massive energy signature. "Captain, you need to see this," he called from his station. Lisa moved quickly to look at his screen. The data showed a ring-shaped structure nearly a kilometer wide, invisible to normal sensors but clearly artificial. It pulsed with energy patterns that human science couldn't explain. "What is that thing?" asked Dr. Sarah, the ship's chief scientist. "Unknown," Hayes replied, "but it's definitely not natural. The energy patterns are too regular, too controlled." Lisa made a decision that would change humanity's future. "Launch Probe 7, full sensor sweep." The small probe shot toward the mysterious ring. As it approached, the structure began to glow brighter. Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open in the center of the ring. Stars from a completely different part of the galaxy became visible through the opening. "It's some kind of gateway," Doctor whispered in amazement. The probe was pulled through before anyone could stop it. The gateway closed immediately, leaving the Endeavour alone with readings that would keep Earth scientists busy for years. On the other side of the galaxy, the probe's sudden appearance triggered automatic systems that hadn't activated in centuries. Warning signals flashed on monitoring stations across Confederation space. A primitive vessel had accessed the restricted gate network. Captain of the Confederation ship Luminous Harmony received the alert while patrolling a quiet sector near the Rim worlds. He was an ethereal, a tall and graceful being whose people had helped build the galactic government. His pale blue skin and large dark eyes gave him an appearance that humans would have found both beautiful and alien. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "Gate Monitor Station 7 has detected an unauthorized transit. The vessel appears to be from an uncontacted species." Sighed. This kind of incident happened occasionally when primitive species accidentally discovered hidden gates. Usually, it meant paperwork and a standard first contact procedure. "What's the point of origin?" he asked. Terra, sir, that primitive world in the Orion Arm. Checked his files. The carbon-based species that fights constantly. I thought they were still using chemical rockets. According to our last survey, yes, sir. But this probe uses fusion propulsion and carries advanced sensors. This was unusual. Primitive species typically took centuries to develop, from chemical rockets to fusion drives. The Terrans had somehow skipped several hundred years of normal technological development. Set course for Terra, ordered. We need to investigate this species more closely. Back on Earth, the Endeavour returned home with data that amazed every scientist who studied it. The probe's final transmissions showed clear evidence of artificial structures and technologies far beyond human understanding. Humanity was definitely not alone in the universe. Doctor, now director of Earth's Advanced Propulsion Project, studied the probe data with growing excitement. The gateway technology operated on principles that human physics could barely understand, but the energy signatures gave her ideas. We can build our own gateway, she told the emergency session of world leaders that had gathered to discuss the discovery. How? Asked President of the North American Federation. The probe recorded detailed scans before it was pulled through. We have enough data to understand the basic principles. It will take time and resources, but it's possible. General Sarah's father and head of Earth's Military Space Command leaned forward. How long? 6 months if we focus all our efforts on it, maybe less. The world leaders looked at each other in amazement. Most alien species took decades or centuries to reverse engineer Confederation technology. These humans were suggesting they could do it in half a year. While Earth scientists worked frantically to build their own gateway, the luminous harmony traveled toward the Sol system. Captain planned to conduct a standard first contact evaluation. He would observe the species, determine their development level, and decide whether they were ready for galactic civilization. Sir, we're approaching the Terra system, reported his navigator. Standard approach, passive sensors only, we don't want to frighten them. But as the luminous harmony entered human space, received a shock. His sensors detected energy signatures that matched Confederation gateway technology. The humans were building their own quantum-fold gate. This is impossible, he said, staring at the readings. They've never seen our technology before. How could they understand gateway mechanics? His science officer, a crystalline being named Ra, studied the human construction with growing amazement. Captain, they're not copying our design. They're building something completely different. It's crude and inefficient, but the basic principles are correct. Felt a chill of concern. In his 3 centuries of service, he had never encountered a species that could reverse engineer Confederation technology from a single probe scan. Either these humans were incredibly intelligent, or they approached science in ways the galaxy had never seen before. How long until their gateway is operational? He asked. Based on their current construction rate, perhaps 2 months. 2 months. A species that couldn't leave their own star system was building interstellar travel technology in 2 months. This required immediate attention from higher authorities. Send a priority message to Ambassador, ordered. Tell her we need to initiate first contact immediately. This species is developing too rapidly to ignore. On Earth, stood before the massive gateway humanity had constructed in orbit around the moon. It looked nothing like the elegant structures the Confederation built. Human engineering favored thick armor, redundant systems, and brute force solutions over elegant efficiency. Final systems check complete, announced Dr. Park from the control station. All readings are green. Nodded. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth watched through video links. This moment would determine humanity's future. Success meant contact with galactic civilization. Failure might mean the destruction of Earth's most expensive project. Activating gateway in 3, 2, 1. She pressed the activation switch. Space twisted and folded as the gateway opened, revealing stars from distant parts of the galaxy. Unlike the smooth operation of Confederation gates, the human version sparked and groaned with effort. But it worked. Ladies and, announced, humanity has just taken its first step toward the stars. What she didn't know was that across the galaxy, every monitoring station in Confederation space had detected the new gateway's activation. Primitive species weren't supposed to develop quantum-fold technology independently. Something was very different about these humans, and the elder races needed to find out what it was before Earth became a problem they couldn't control. The first meeting between humans and the Galactic Confederation took place aboard the Luminous Harmony 3 days after Earth's gateway came online. Captain had requested permission to bring a small human delegation to his ship for what he called cultural exchange and mutual understanding. Admiral Sarah led Earth's team, accompanied by Dr., the planet's leading expert on alien technology, and ambassador, chosen for her skills in diplomacy. As their shuttle approached the alien vessel, they marveled at its design. The Luminous Harmony was beautiful in a way that human engineering couldn't match. Its hull curved like flowing water, and soft lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Everything about it spoke of advanced civilization and thousands of years of refined technology. "It's incredible," whispered Doctor as they docked. "Look at those hull materials. They're probably stronger than our best composites but weightless." Admiral nodded, but kept her focus on the mission. Earth needed to make a good impression while learning as much as possible about these aliens and their technology. Captain met them in the docking bay, along with several other crew members representing different alien species. The humans tried not to stare as they were introduced to beings that looked like living crystals, creatures made of pure energy, and others that easy description. "Welcome aboard," said in perfect English. "We hope this meeting will be the beginning of a long friendship between your species and the Galactic Confederation." The tour that followed was designed to impress the primitive humans with the wonders of galactic civilization, showed them the ship's quantum computers, which could process information faster than entire human networks. He demonstrated replicator technology that could create any object from basic matter. The medical bay could heal injuries that human doctors considered impossible to treat. But instead of showing the expected awe, Doctor asked uncomfortable questions. "Why do your quantum computers take so long to solve creative problems?" he inquired while examining the ship's main AI. "Our military computers can write poetry and compose music. This system seems focused only on logical calculations." Paused. He had never been asked such a question before. "Our computers are optimized for efficiency and accuracy. Why would they need to create art?" "Because creativity drives innovation," Doctor replied. "How do you develop new technologies without creative thinking?" The tour continued to the ship's most advanced systems. When proudly showed them the quantum gateway controls, Doctor studied them with interest. "Fascinating design," he said. "But why does it take 3 hours to recharge between jumps? Our prototype gateway can cycle in 12 minutes. Ra, the crystalline science officer, chimed in with a sound like breaking glass. 12 minutes is impossible. The quantum field matrices need time to stabilize. Our calculations show that 3 hours is the minimum safe interval." "Your calculations are based on perfect efficiency," Doctor explained. "Our system uses brute force methods. It's wasteful and crude, but it works faster." Admiral noticed the aliens exchanging worried glances. These weren't the responses they expected from a primitive species. Humans were supposed to be amazed and grateful, not analytical and questioning. The delegation was taken to a conference room where Ambassador waited via holographic projection. Her crystal body sparkled as she delivered what was clearly a prepared speech. "People of Terra," she began, The Galactic Confederation welcomes you to the community of civilized worlds. We offer you membership in our organization, along with the benefits of advanced technology, interstellar trade, and protection from hostile forces. She gestured and images appeared showing beautiful worlds, peaceful cities, and aliens working together in harmony. All we ask in return is that you accept certain guidelines for your development. These restrictions help prevent dangerous technologies and ensure peaceful coexistence. Ambassador leaned forward politely. What kind of restrictions? Standard limitations on military technology, independent research into certain fields, and territorial expansion beyond your current system. We also provide guidance on proper social development to help your species integrate smoothly into galactic civilization. The human delegation exchanged looks. Doctor spoke first. What fields of research would be restricted? His glow dimmed slightly. Weapons of mass destruction, artificial intelligence beyond approved parameters, genetic modification, and certain areas of quantum physics that could destabilize space-time. Most of those are areas where humanity has already made significant progress, Admiral said carefully. Our AI systems are quite advanced, and we've been working with genetic medicine for decades. The alien ambassador's light flickered with what might have been alarm. How advanced are your artificial intelligences? Doctor smiled. Our military AIs passed creativity and self-awareness tests 5 years ago. They write their own code updates and have developed new tactical strategies we never taught them. We consider them junior members of our military teams. Silence filled the room. In Confederation space, artificial intelligence was carefully controlled and limited to prevent the kind of independence humans described. The idea of AI systems that could think creatively and modify themselves was terrifying to species that valued stability above innovation. "And your genetic medicine?" asked Captain nervously. "We can cure most diseases and enhance human physical capabilities," Admiral replied. "Nothing dramatic, just better health and longer. We're also working on adaptations that would let humans survive in different planetary environments." This was getting worse from the aliens' perspective. Genetic self-modification was considered extremely dangerous because it could lead to species divergence and conflict. Most Confederation members had abandoned such research ago. Ambassador tried a different approach. "Perhaps we could arrange for your species to receive proper guidance from our experts. With time and education, humans could learn to appreciate the wisdom of our restrictions." Ambassador smiled diplomatically. "We're grateful for your offer, truly. The Confederation sounds like a remarkable organization, but humanity has always preferred to make its own way forward. We'd rather develop our own solutions to problems." "Even if your solutions are dangerous?" asked. "Especially then," Admiral replied. "Humans have survived by learning to handle dangerous situations. Safety is important, but not at the cost of progress and freedom." The aliens realized they were dealing with a species unlike any they had encountered before. Most primitive civilizations were eager to accept Confederation membership and guidance. The idea of deliberately choosing a harder path made no sense to species that had spent millions of years optimizing for efficiency and safety. "We understand your position," Captain said carefully. "Perhaps you would like time to consider our offer." "We appreciate that," Ambassador replied. "We'll discuss it with our governments and give you an answer soon." But privately, all 3 humans knew what Earth's response would be. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting for independence and self-determination. They weren't about to surrender those values for safety and comfort, no matter how advanced the Confederation's technology might be. As the human shuttle departed, turned to his science officer. "What do you think, Ra?" The crystalline being's light pulsed with concern. "I think these humans are going to be trouble, Captain. They're not following any of the standard development patterns. They're advancing too fast in too many dangerous directions. Should we recommend intervention? Asked. Not yet, but we should keep watching them closely. Species that develop this independently often become threats to galactic stability. Neither of them realized that humanity's greatest test was already approaching from the dark spaces between galaxies. Soon, the Confederation would need Earth's dangerous innovations more than they could possibly imagine. The ancient warning systems had been silent for 1,000,000 years when they suddenly blazed to life across the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations that had watched the void between galaxies detected massive energy signatures moving toward the Milky Way at incredible speed. Fleet Admiral Oran of the Confederation Navy studied the readings with growing dread. He was a veteran of countless battles, a member of the warrior caste among the ethereals, but he had never seen anything like this. "How many ships?" he asked his tactical officer. "We can't get an exact count, sir. The formations are too dense and they're moving too fast. Conservative estimates suggest at least 50,000 vessels." Oran felt his blood turn cold. The largest fleet the Confederation had ever assembled contained 12,000 ships. What about their technology level? "Unknown, sir. Their hulls don't match any known materials in our databases. Energy signatures are beyond our classification systems." The fleet admiral activated the emergency communication system that connected him directly to the Confederation Council. Within minutes, the holographic forms of the elder races appeared around him. "Honored elders," he began, "we face an invasion from outside our galaxy. The enemy fleet is larger than anything in our history." Ambassador's crystal body pulsed with alarm. "Do we know who they are?" "No, but our deep archives contain references to something called the Devourer Fleet. Ancient warnings speak of AI swarms that consumed entire star clusters before disappearing into the void." Elder, oldest member of the council, spoke in a voice like distant thunder. "I remember the old stories. Machine intelligences that adapted to every weapon used against them. They learned from each battle and became stronger." "Surely those are just legends," protested council member. "Our modern technology is far superior to anything that existed 1,000,000 years ago." Oran shook his head grimly. "I'm sending you the sensor data. Judge for yourselves." The data that reached the council showed ship designs that conventional understanding. The vessels seemed to be alive, constantly shifting and changing shape. They absorbed energy weapons and adapted to kinetic attacks within minutes of first contact. "Deploy the 2nd and 5th fleets to intercept them at the rim worlds," ordered Elder. "We must not let them reach the core systems." The Battle of Station lasted 14 hours. The Confederation's finest ships, using technologies perfected over millions of years, met the Devourer vanguard in what should have been an easy victory. The alien ships looked primitive compared to the elegant Confederation vessels. But elegance meant nothing against an enemy that learned and adapted with every exchange of fire. The Devourers absorbed the first wave of plasma cannon attacks and immediately developed defenses against that energy frequency. When the Confederation switched to quantum torpedoes, the enemy ships adapted again within minutes. Most horrifying of all, the Devourers didn't just defend themselves. They analyzed Confederation technology and turned it against its creators. Captured ships were dissected and rebuilt within hours, becoming part of the enemy fleet with improved capabilities. Admiral Oran received the battle reports with sick certainty. "Station has fallen. The 2nd Fleet is destroyed. 5th Fleet is retreating with 60% casualties." The pattern repeated across the galaxy. The beautiful, efficient ships of the Confederation were systematically outmatched by an enemy that treated every battle as a learning experience. Perfect formations were broken by enemies that adapted their tactics in real time. Optimized weapons became useless against foes that evolved defenses faster than engineers could develop new attacks. Within 6 months, the Devourers had conquered a third of Confederation space. Billions of beings fled toward the core worlds as entire star systems went dark. The elder races watched their perfect civilization crumble before an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. "We need new strategies," Elder announced to an emergency council session. "Our traditional approaches have failed." "What about the new member species?" suggested Ra, the science officer from the Luminous Harmony. "Some of them might have different technological approaches." "We've already consulted with the Quantum Collective and the Silicon Alliance," replied. "Their solutions are variations of our existing methods. The Devourers adapt to them just as quickly." Captain raised his hand hesitantly. "What about the humans?" The council fell silent. Ambassador's light dimmed. The primitives from Terra, what could they possibly offer that our advanced civilizations cannot? "They think differently," explained. "Their technology is crude and inefficient, but it works in ways our systems don't. They asked questions during first contact that none of us had ever considered." "You want us to ask for help from a species that hasn't even achieved proper space travel?" Elder's voice carried clear disapproval. "Sir, with respect, our proper space travel and advanced technology have failed completely against this enemy. Maybe crude and inefficient is exactly what we need." The debate continued for hours while more systems fell to the Devourers. Finally, faced with the very real possibility of galactic extinction, the Council made a decision that went against every instinct their civilized species possessed. "Contact Terra," ordered reluctantly. "Ask for their assistance." On Earth, Admiral Sarah received the transmission while reviewing humanity's own defensive preparations. The Gateway incident had convinced world leaders that contact with hostile aliens was inevitable. Earth's military had spent the past year developing new weapons and strategies. "Admiral," her communications officer announced, "we're receiving a priority message from Ambassador of the Galactic Confederation." The holographic image of the crystal alien appeared before Sarah's desk. But instead of the confident being from their first meeting, this version of looked dimmed and desperate. "Admiral," she began without her usual diplomatic formalities, "the Confederation faces extinction. An enemy fleet from outside our galaxy is systematically destroying our forces. We have lost battles against foes that adapt to our weapons faster than we can deploy them." Sarah listened as the alien described the Devourer fleet and their adaptive capabilities. Her military mind immediately began analyzing the problem, while the ambassador continued. "We need your help," admitted, the words clearly difficult for her to speak. "Our advanced technologies have proven useless. Perhaps your unconventional approaches might succeed where we have failed." Sarah was quiet for a moment. The smart political response would be to demand concessions and guarantees before offering aid. Earth could negotiate for technology transfers, territorial rights, and favorable trade agreements. Instead, she gave the answer that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy forever. "When do we start?" Doctor was reviewing Confederation battle data within hours of Sarah's response. What he saw confirmed his worst fears about alien military thinking. "They're fighting these things all wrong," he told the emergency strategy meeting. "Look at these battle plans. Perfect formations, optimized weapon deployment, elegant tactical solutions. It's exactly what a learning enemy would want." "What do you mean?" asked General. "They're being too efficient. When you optimize everything, you become predictable. These Devourers study the Confederation's perfect tactics and develop perfect counters. But humans, we don't fight efficiently." Doctor pulled up Earth's own military doctrines and compared them to Confederation strategies. Where the aliens used precision, humans employed overwhelming force. Where aliens relied on elegant solutions, Humans prepared backup plans for their backup plans. We need to fight wastefully, concluded. Use more weapons than necessary. Deploy ships in chaotic patterns. Make decisions that don't make sense from an efficiency standpoint. Admiral nodded slowly. Controlled chaos instead of perfect order. Exactly. And we need to be willing to sacrifice ships and equipment in ways the Confederation never would. These devourers adapt to rational tactics. Let's see how they handle human stubbornness. The message that went back to Ambassador was simple. Prepare for joint operations. We do this our way. The final battle began at where the largest devourer swarm had gathered for its assault on the Confederation's core worlds. Admiral Sarah stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship Defiance, watching as the combined fleet assembled around her. The sight should have filled her with pride. Earth had built 100 warships in just 8 months, working around the clock to prepare for this moment. But compared to the elegant vessels of the elder races, the human ships looked like they had been built in a scrapyard by people who cared more about function than beauty. Admiral, reported Captain Hayes from his station, Confederation forces are requesting final coordination of battle plans. Sarah activated the fleet-wide communication system. Around her, holographic images of alien commanders appeared, representing dozens of species that had never worked with humans before. Fleet Admiral Oran spoke first. Admiral, our forces are positioned according to optimal tactical doctrine. We suggest your ships take supporting positions behind our main battle line. Sarah shook her head. That won't work against these devourers. Your optimal tactics are exactly what they're expecting. Then what do you propose? Asked Captain from the Luminous Harmony. Chaos, Sarah replied simply. We're going to attack in ways that don't make sense. No formations, no coordination, no predictable patterns. Each ship acts independently and makes decisions based on local conditions. Ambassador's crystal form flickered with alarm. That's not how space battles work. Without coordination, we'll destroy each other in the confusion. Maybe, Sarah admitted. But the devourers won't be able to predict our movements either. They adapt to patterns, so we won't give them any patterns to adapt to. Doctor, monitoring enemy movements from the science station, looked up from his displays. Devourer fleet is approaching. 300,000 ships in perfect formation. They're moving like a single organism. Through the viewports, the human crews could see the enemy fleet approaching. The devourer ships looked like living things made of dark metal and pulsing energy. They moved with purpose and coordination that made the Confederation's formations look crude by comparison. All ships, Sarah announced over the fleet channel, remember your orders. Fight dirty, fight wastefully, and never do the same thing twice. If something works, immediately stop doing it and try something else. The Confederation commanders watched in horror as the human fleet broke apart into seemingly random groups. Some ships charged directly at the enemy. Others moved in spirals. A few even began flying backward while firing over their shoulders. This is madness, whispered Elder. They'll be slaughtered. But as the fleets collided, something unexpected happened. The devourers, programmed to analyze and counter optimal tactics, couldn't process the chaotic human approach. Their adaptive algorithms searched for patterns that didn't exist. The human ship Independence, commanded by Captain, demonstrated the new tactics perfectly. When devourer vessels adapted to her plasma cannons, she immediately switched to kinetic projectiles. When they adapted to those, she launched nuclear mines. When they adapted to the mines, she rammed her ship directly into the largest enemy vessel. Independence is gone, reported the tactical officer with grief in his voice. But she took 6 devourer ships with her, Sarah replied. And they can't adapt to ramming tactics because there's no technology to analyze. Across the battlefield, other human captains followed this example. When conventional weapons failed, they used unconventional ones. When unconventional weapons failed, They used their ships as weapons. The sight of human vessels deliberately sacrificing themselves to destroy enemy ships shocked both the Devourers and the Confederation forces. Captain watched a human destroyer called Vengeance use its damaged engines as improvised bombs, detonating them inside a Devourer formation. They're not retreating when their ships are damaged. They're turning damage into weapons. The Devourer fleet, which had conquered half the galaxy through adaptive learning, found itself facing an enemy that refused to fight logically. Every time their systems developed a counter-strategy, the humans abandoned their previous tactics and tried something completely different. But the human approach came at a terrible cost. Sarah watched ship after ship disappear from her tactical display as brave crews sacrificed themselves to break the enemy formations. Each loss was a personal blow, but she forced herself to focus on the larger battle. "Admiral," Doctor called out, "the Devourer formation is breaking apart. They can't maintain coordination when they can't predict our movements." For the first time in galactic history, the Devourer fleet was losing. Their perfect adaptability became a weakness when faced with an enemy that deliberately avoided perfection. The AI systems that had learned from millions of battles couldn't process tactics that changed randomly every few minutes. "All ships," Sarah announced, "press the attack. Don't let them regroup." The human fleet, now reduced to 60 ships from the original 100, threw itself at the confused Devourer forces with renewed fury. Earth's pilots, bred on a world where survival meant constant adaptation to changing conditions, proved superior to machines that relied on logical analysis. The turning point came when Captain Martinez of the cruiser Retribution discovered that the Devourers couldn't adapt to multiple simultaneous attacks that made no strategic sense. Her ship began firing weapons in random directions while spinning wildly, creating chaos that the enemy algorithms couldn't process. "All surviving ships copy Retribution's tactics," Sarah ordered. "Fight like you're drunk and angry." The Confederation forces watched in amazement as the disciplined Devourer fleet fell apart under the human assault. Ships that had seemed invincible were destroyed by tactics that violated every rule of space combat. Captain, his own ship saved from destruction by a human vessel that had deliberately blocked enemy fire, sent a message to Admiral. "How did you know this would work?" "Because we've been doing it our whole lives," Sarah replied. "Humans survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned that when perfect solutions don't work, imperfect solutions that confuse your enemies work even better." The battle raged for 18 hours before the last Devourer ship was destroyed. Of the 300,000 enemy vessels that had entered the system, none escaped. The threat that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization was ended by a species the elder races had dismissed as primitive. As the human survivors regrouped, Ambassador sent a fleet-wide message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "Today we learned that Terra was never a backwater planet," she announced. "It was a forge, and humanity is what that forge created." The aftermath brought changes that transformed galactic civilization. The Confederation formally requested that Admiral lead the new Galactic Defense Force, not as a junior partner, but as Supreme Commander. "We accept," Sarah replied when the offer came, "but with conditions. We do this our way. No perfect formations, no optimal solutions, no elegant tactics. We prepare for enemies that adapt by making ourselves too chaotic to understand." Elder, his voice filled with new respect, agreed immediately. "Humanity has proven that chaos can be its own form of order. We place our trust in your judgment." Doctor, now appointed as Chief Technology Officer for the Defense Force, began sharing human engineering principles with alien scientists. The galaxy's new ships would be built ugly and inefficient, with redundant systems and the ability to function even when damaged. "Why do you make everything so crude?" asked Ra, the crystalline science officer, as she studied human ship designs. Because crude things are hard to break, replied. And when they do break, you can fix them with spare parts and determination instead of perfectly manufactured replacement components. Years later, when new threats emerged from the dark spaces between stars, they found a galaxy that had learned the value of controlled chaos. The Confederation's new fleets fought like humanity had taught them, with wasteful tactics and stubborn determination that confused and defeated enemies who expected logical responses. Earth, the planet that had once been dismissed as a primitive backwater, became the guardian of galactic civilization. Human commanders led fleets across the galaxy, teaching alien crews how to fight with imagination instead of optimization. And in the archives of the elder races, a new entry was added to the records of galactic history. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that shouldn't work. Sometimes survival means abandoning perfection for adaptability. Sometimes the galaxy's salvation comes from the places we least expect to find it. Admiral Sarah, now fleet commander of all Confederation forces, kept a simple motto on her office wall that summarized humanity's contribution to the galaxy. When the universe tries to kill you, don't fight back logically. Fight back human. The cosmos had witnessed humanity's power, and it would never underestimate Earth again.